Okay, our first message will be brought to us today by Mr. David Hope, and his title is Design Requires a Designer.
Thank you, Mr. Witt. Ooh, this is loud. I turned my hearing aids down, I thought. Good to see everyone here today. Some of you haven't seen in a while. My wife and I were out of town for a while, and then when we come back, some of you weren't here, but it's good to see you guys again. Everyone, all of you. Looks like I've got a lot of ammunition here, a lot more than what I need. I've got a book here to read out of, and about 3 pages of handwritten notes because my printer don't work. But I'm not going to do it all. I know how to cut it back. But I need part of this. Yeah, as the topic goes, design needs a designer, and I think most of you will remember that. Will agree with that. Today, I've got going to be talking about the miracle of creation and just a little bit of it. It's such a big topic. In fact, the topic that I decided on is much bigger too, and I'm not even going to begin to cover it all. But the main thing that I'm going to talk about is the eye. I've thought a lot, I hear these people a lot of times will talk about millions of years and how the body and all these things evolve. They have a lot more faith than what I have. When I take the eye, and I'll just read a few things and I'll try to keep it short, and my reading is not necessarily up to par, but I'm going to see what my note says. I got to go by my notes. My note says you got to do this. And anyway, the human eye, and also animals too. I'm going to, let me start off by reading the Bible. That's one thing the sermons are supposed to be about, the Bible. I'm going to go to the Old Testament in Psalms 139, one that is pretty familiar with a lot of you. We've heard it before, but sometimes it has a special meaning to me, especially when I'm doing something like this. Psalms 139, we'll just kind of break in on verse 14 through 18. David speaking. David wrote this, and David is a very positive person for the most part. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And you look at the human body, all the components that we have. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, I think, and the different kinds of animals and things that they do. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows right well. My substance was not hid from you when I was made in secret, and curiosity brought in me the lowest parts of the earth. Verse 16, your eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect, and in your book my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none. How precious are your thoughts unto me, O God. David really thinks God's thoughts are wonderful, and I do too, and I think you do. If I should count them, they are more in number than sand. When I wake, I am still with you. There's tremendous blessings that we need to recognize, and I think most of us do. I'm going to go over to this book. I got quite a bit of information from encyclopedia. Mr. Google knows quite a bit. And I hand wrote a lot of that stuff up. Well, my wife handed me this book that we've had for years, Reader's Digest book, and it's ABCs of the Human Body. It has a whole lot in there that I'm not going to do, but I had a few things that would fit into what I want to read and what I want to do. And where's Terry? We're talking about the eye. Terry knows a lot about the eye. He's had eye issues, if you don't mind me saying so. And he could probably write some stuff on that. And a lot of you know Roy McGrew lives out in western Oklahoma that's unable to come with us anymore. Well, his granddaughter had some real eye situations. She'd look at you and see two heads. I think she got it straightened out. But anyway, these people that have had a problem can explain a lot of that stuff pretty well. And I'm going to read in here, it says, how does the eye compare with a camera? And I've thought about that over the years, and I've been in photography. I think some of you know, and I used to do a lot of darkroom work and photographic stuff. And so I'm not a professional, but I did pretty good on making prints and stuff and doing all that. But a camera's adjustable diaphragm works like the iris of the eye to control the amount of light that enters. In both camera and eye, a lens focuses image on a light-sensitive area. Photographic film or the retina of the eye both seeing images and pictures. Together, the eye's lens and iris produce sharp, well-defined image similar to that produced by a camera's lens and diaphragm. And back before they had this automatic cameras, you know, it automatically set your aperture and your shutter speed and all that. You had to do, if you were lucky enough to have something more than a fixed camera, that you had to do all that, and you could adjust your field of vision. You know, I could look at Ken right now like I am. I'm looking at him. I can see you people. Now I don't see Ken so much. And over here, I can look down here, or I can look at my finger and I can look, see if I've got a splinter in it. And I see all of you back here, but you're not clear. And you've seen movies that way too. Well, the eye does that automatically, and with the camera, well, of course, the nowadays cameras do a lot of that too. Unlike the camera, however, the eye takes images consistently. You know, it's always taking images when you are awake and transmits them via the optic nerve, and you guys know what the optic nerve is, and transmits them via the optic nerve to the brain. You know, that eye puts all that in there. What part of man did it decide I need an eye? And it's going to put this stuff in there to make, you know, just part of it. There's so many parts of that. I've got pictures in here, and if I get good enough one of these days, I'm going to be able to put stuff up on the screen so you can see that. But there's so many parts of the eye, and they have to be there at the time to make it work right. I was talking to a gentleman out in California a few weeks ago. We were out there, and I made some comment, like I tried to get on my soapbox, you know, and say something good about God or whatever. And I said, man, I just can't see how such and such work, you know. And he said, well, you give it enough time over millions of years. I didn't argue with him. I started asking, well, what do you mean? Give me an example how that would happen. There are so many things in this world that if everything wasn't there at the same time, at the right moment, it would not exist. It would not exist. And anyway, let me get a little... I don't want to take Barnabas' time. I don't know what I did in my stopwatch. Anyway, I'm distracting. Okay, and like to the brain. The lens both of the eye and of the camera produce an upside down image. And when you turn yourself upside down on one of these machines, it doesn't do anything. The image is slightly different in each eye. The brain is responsible for the right side up. The brain does that. You know, you're really upside down. Didn't know it. Three-dimensional view that most of us see. Images are sorted, stored, and in the memory and recalled by the brain, or later by the brain. Here's another place. What happens when light enters the eye? Light first passes through the transparent cornea. And where did the cornea come from? When did it come in there, Terry? That covers the pupil, which is really the opening of the iris. Which came first, the cornea or the iris? I don't know. Anyway, you got along, okay. Then continues through a chamber of watery fluid called the aqueous humor. It's in the picture there somewhere. Next, light passes through the lens and is focused on the retina. After having passed through the gelatinous center of the eye, the vitreous, well, that's a funny thing, vitreous meaning glassy body in the retina, light stimulates masses of receptors known as rods and cones. And some of you probably know what rods and cones are. I've got a lot of definitions for it, but I don't have time. I can prove it. But anyway, rods and cones. The latter are color detectors. The cones are. Impulses from the receptors eventually reach the brain after following a complicated pathway via the optic nerve and the brain tracts. When you really look in, and there's a lot of stuff in here, when you really get into that, it's to me, it's amazing. I'm going to put that over there. Oh, I wanted to, no, never mind. I asked Mr. Google, I think that was this morning, I asked Mr. Google on the phone, said, can eagles see better than people? I knew they could, or I thought they could, and I thought hawks do too. And but anyway, they gave me quite a bit of an explanation, and I've got it down here also. If I get on the right page, it says, "Can eagles see better than humans?" Answer: yes. Estimated to be 4 to 8 times sharper, due to several factors. One, larger eyes, proportionally have larger eyes, higher density of light detecting cells called cones, cones, and the presence of 2, this is a funny word, I want to put love, but FOVEAE, areas of the sharp focus. Anyway, that's what it is. They've got 2 of those, and where people just have 1. What that is, areas of the sharp focus per eye instead of 1. Okay. Some species, and this is still of a certain eagle, some species are able to see a rabbit from 3 miles away. A rabbit 3 miles away. They need to look and see what a pecan tree has when it has pecans on it, and to get the squirrels out of my yard. Anyway, 3 miles away. Color and detail have a much higher concentration of cones per millimeter in their FOVEA, whatever it is, FOVEA, excuse me, allows them to more colors vividly discern more details, so the eagles can see better than we can. And the best I remember, I didn't have anything written down, but on hawks, I did stuff on hawks too. They, for the most part, the way I understand, see in black and white. They don't have as many of those cones in their eye. Why, I don't know. That may be why they don't get my squirrels out of my yard. Once in a while I'll see one laying in the street dead that a car run over, but I guess squirrels don't have good eyes either, I don't know. Color and detail have a much higher concentration of cone. Oh, I read that, didn't I? Field of view, the wider field of view, they can see wider than what we can. It had the statistics down, but I didn't write it down. It's something like 300 and some degrees, not 360, because they'd have eyes in the back of their head, but they can see a long way. Vision capabilities, can spot a mouse at 446 feet. That's about a football field and a half to see a mouse. I know men that'll jump on the counter when they're 4 feet away. I don't, but anyway, but 446 feet away to see a little mouse. So they can spot a fish in the water from hundreds of feet above. The eye can do that. I wonder when the eagles decided they needed an eye where they could do that. You know, how did they get their food? Did they crawl? Did they use their beak and get grub worms or something like that? And said, you know, it'd be good if I could see that critter. I don't think it'd get away from me. But somewhere or another, evolution, over millions and millions of years, produced eagles that could see a mouse at 446 feet or a rabbit at 300. I was going to say miles. I'm going to exaggerate now. 300 or 3 miles. Then they can spot a fish. Let me see. I'm going to read another scripture. Go to Romans, and I guess I'll have it on the board up there. Brian's pretty good about that. Romans, first chapter, and another pretty familiar verse. Romans, the first chapter, and verse 17 through 22. Behold, you are called a Jew, and is that right? No, I'm wrong. It didn't sound right, did it? It didn't read right either. I was on the wrong page. Romans 1, verse 17. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. As it is written, the just shall live by faith. Now, most of us, I think, by now have faith that there is a creator God. He is the designer. He designed everything we see. A lot of people don't have that. Fortunately, they have more faith about their evolution. For the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all unrighteousness and ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in righteousness. So some of them have the truth, but they do it in unrighteousness. Verse 19. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it to them. God shows us if we just open our eyes or our mind and see that God has created this stuff. It's not possible for these things, in my opinion, to happen without God doing that. God has shown us everything that we know is made up of atoms, and you can't even see atoms unless you have an electron microscope or something of that nature. Verse 20, for the invisible things of him, and that's including all manner, for the invisible things of him, that's radio waves and everything else too. Where'd I go? For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Just look what we have made and know that something put it there the right way, the right time. Even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their own imaginations. And their foolish heart was darkened. So more and more people over the years, every decade, every 10 years, more and more people are turning away from the church and turning away from God. There were some statistics mentioned here a few weeks ago. I don't remember who did it now, but talking about how church attendance and faith in God has declined over the years. And and they give the reason for it in verse 22. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. So, like I said, they're without excuse. We know that design requires a designer, and you look at God and you see so many things that he made. And anyway, this is just something to, not to save anybody, but it's something to, get you to thinking if you want to about things like that. I can't keep my mind off of God's creation and the miracle that it has. But thanks for listening to me.